For the record, my name is Kendra Lara, District 6 City Councilor. I'm the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks. This hearing is being recorded. It's being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Today's hearing is on 3 separate dockets, starting with docket number 0433, a message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $350,000 in the form of a grant for the Massachusetts Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, the DER grant, awarded by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection under a cooperative agreement with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. The purpose of the DER grant is to reduce diesel emissions from the transportation sector. The funds will be used to purchase and deploy fuel-efficient school buses as part of the Boston Public School fleet. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Wu and referred to the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks on March 30th, 2022. Followed by docket number 0539, a message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $180,000 in the form of a grant for the Community First Partnership awarded by Mass Save to be administered by the Environment Department. The grant will fund outreach and engagement with environmental justice communities to drive increased awareness and measurable participation in energy efficiency programs. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Wu and referred to the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks on April 27, 2022. And finally, docket 0653, a message and order for approval and an order authorizing the Parks and Recreations Commission on behalf of the City of Boston to acquire by eminent domain taking 2 parcels on the western shore of Sprague Pond at 0 through 4 Lakeside Avenue and Hyde Park Ave as a permanently protected parkland to be known as the Sprague Pond Shoreline Reserve, and to use Community Preservation Fund monies appropriated to the Parks and Recreation Department to award damages as determined by the Commission. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Wu and referred to the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks on May 25th, 2022. We will be taking public testimony after each of these dockets and the panels have presented. If you're here with us in the chamber, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. For all testimony, please state your name, neighborhood, or affiliation, and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. Joining us today from the administration, we have Delaverne Stanislaus. Did I pronounce that correctly? Stanislaus. Thank you very much. Delaverne Stanislaus, Director of Transportation for Boston Public Schools. Dr. Allison Brazaias, who is the Commissioner of the Environment Department. Aldo Gurin, Senior Planner of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you. Later we'll be joined by Reverend Chief Mariama White-Hammond, who is the Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space, and Joseph Bagley, the City Archaeologist, Director of Archaeology. I also want to acknowledge that I have been joined by my council colleague, Councilor Liz Braden. Before turning the floor to our first panel on docket 0433, I'd like to, well, we're not going to do opening remarks. We're going to go first, and then when we do questions, we can do opening remarks.
Just go for it.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a letter of absence here from my council colleague, Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, that I will read into the record. Dear Chair Lara, I am writing to extend my wholehearted support for docket number 0653. I regret I cannot be here in person due to scheduling conflict, but I ask that you please read this letter into the record. As the District 5 City Councilor, I have advocated for the acquisition and preservation of Sprague Pond since being elected, lifting up the work done by a host of local residents and organizations in protecting what is now designated a great pond. As part of the Civil War era Camp Maze, the pond has important historical and cultural associations. It is where the 54th and 55th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiments trained before deployment to southern battlefields. Additionally, this parcel is located in an environmental justice tract, meeting the criteria of 25% or more of the residents identifying as a race other than white. It is crucial to consider this parcel potential climate resiliency benefits in conjunction with its location in an environmental justice tract when considering this matter. I urge this committee to support docket number 0653 to ensure its protection for Sprague Pond's natural features, its historic and cultural resources, while also enhancing public access, use, and enjoyment. Sincerely, Ricardo Arroyo, Boston City Councilor for District 5. Thank you. So I will now hand it over to the administration for the first administration, and the first docket for the record is docket number 0433. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Delaverne Stanislaus. I'm the Director of Transportation for Boston Public Schools. I'm joined here today with Jacqueline Hayes, our Fleet and Compliance Manager for the Boston Public Schools Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
As part of the Mayor's Green Initiatives, Boston Public Schools Department of Transportation is working to launch a 20-bus pilot as the first step in electrifying its fleet. Our goal is to electrify the entire fleet over the coming years. This year, BPS DOT applied for funding under the Diesel Emission Reduction Act. We were awarded funding and plan to use that funding to support our electric bus pilot that will launch during the school year 2022-2023. This grant will help partially fund 12 buses in a 20 electric bus pilot program expected to deploy during school year 2022-2023. 20 diesel buses will be removed from the city's fleet and replaced with fully electric school buses. Transitioning from diesel school buses to electric school buses will reduce diesel emission exposure for children riding buses, as well as exposure for community members along our bus routes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. I will now pass it over and give the floor to Councillor Braden in case you have specific questions about this grant. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm very excited about the prospect of having electric school buses. I just had a couple of questions. In terms of where will the chargings of the school buses take place? Will there be a depot that is geared up to charge the buses?
Great question. Our team, Jackie, who's leading the electric bus pilot for just the electric school bus work for Boston Public School, has been working with Eversource on figuring out the infrastructure piece, the charging pieces. Right now we're looking at two of our bus yards, the Freeport bus yard and our Reedville bus yard. We're pretty close at figuring out some of the charging pieces in the Hyde Park area, our Reedville bus yard.
Okay. The other question I had was, how are we connecting our photovoltaic arrays on? We're increasing the number of photovoltaic arrays on schools. Are we connecting that infrastructure to the charging stations? You might want to come down. Sorry. I have a photovoltaic array and I charge my car every day. So if I forget to do it, the car has to go on. It's a hybrid, so it goes on gas when I'm not on electric. But these are all electric buses, so we have to get it right.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we are still exploring ways to find alternative green charging options. Right now, we are going to be connecting to the regular Eversource grid. We are absolutely looking at ways to charge using alternative energy sources that are greener, because we understand that if they're not being charged with green renewable energy sources, then we're not really fully as green as we could be, and that is absolutely the goal and part of what we're looking for long-term planning, which we're going to be working on throughout the summer.
Very good. Now, the other question I have, I have it on fairly good authority that electric buses don't do well in extreme cold. So where are we on investigating that? Because we do have some pretty cold weather in the middle of the winter. It doesn't mean we have a snowstorm, but it can get very, very cold. So we still need the bus, but what's the story on that?
Yep. So the buses that we are looking at have been tested in extreme temperatures as far as north as Canada. But in Boston, we actually have such a huge range of extreme temperature because the ideal temperature for the buses is 70 degrees for batteries. So all of the buses have a conditioning system inside the bus. It is electric, so it runs off of the battery energy from the bus itself, and it helps keep the battery in its ideal range, not too hot and not too cool, to help address extreme temperatures. And we are working with our routing team, we'll be working with some of the consultants who are working with us on this to deploy routes that take into account the extreme temperatures that we see in Boston, both on the hot end, above the 90s, and on the low end, down in the deep negative temperatures that we see in January and February. So we are taking that into account in our routing and deploying of the buses, because that will be part of the consideration for range.
Okay, and what about the range? How far does the battery take us?
They're ideally intended to go 200 miles on a charge. We are going to be careful in our deployment. We want to deploy under the maximum range during the pilot especially, so we learn how to drive the buses effectively to maximize the range. I'm sure you are familiar with regenerative braking and all of these other elements, and driving these buses is different. And the more efficiently we drive the buses, the longer our range will ultimately be. So we're looking at building out training programs and hopefully incentive programs to help people develop that skill from driving and increase our ability to gain larger ranges on each of our charges. For deployment, we're going to prioritize really that middle space of the not too short routes and the not too long routes, so that we can learn how to use them while also prioritizing economic justice neighborhoods.
Okay, and so the maximum range again?
200 miles.
200? That's not bad.
Yeah.
And you know, then in the extreme weather in the summer and in the deep winter, the charging capacity decreases. So do we know what the range, like, sort of, is 200 the maximum, but in a hot weather or cold weather, are we losing, how much percentage of the charge are we unable to do?
I can get additional information to answer the exact changes. With the bus routes, our average bus route is about 40 miles to 45 miles a day, so we're going to be
So we've got a good margin there.
There's some margin for error there, and we're going to, we have not fully worked through all of our route planning for where these buses will be deployed, because we're waiting until we complete our summer routing, and then we're going to use that to identify the right routes for the 20 bus pilot.
Very good. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graydon. Do you mind stating your name again for the record?
My name's Jacqueline Hayes. I'm the Fleet and Compliance Manager for Boston Public Schools Department of Transportation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So you talked a little bit about the target range, wanting to keep it not too short and wanting to keep it not too long. Do you have that number? Is it 150, 175?
We're probably going to keep it on, since we have, most of our routes are in the 40, we have not identified the exact target range that we're going to be going for yet. We are going to work with consultant to help identify the exact right range, because we want to make sure that when we deploy, that our buses are successfully completing their routes each day.
Great. And the consultant is someone who's already working with BPS Transportation, is already there and has been helping with this process, I'm assuming? Great. Do you know what the exact reduction in emissions will be, the diesel emissions will be?
I do not have the exact numbers on hand, but I can get those for you.
Thank you. And is that something that, in terms of getting it to us, would be once it launches to kind of like measure and see, or something that you would have to get through the consultants?
Measuring the exact amount of reduced diesel emissions.
If you're getting this level of diesel emissions from 20 buses, making them electric is going to reduce this much.
Yes, we will definitely be able to get those numbers. I believe we can probably get them for you before we launch, because there are other places where other districts have launched and removed diesel buses.
Thank you. And so here it says that we're going to use the $350,000 to purchase 12 electric school buses, but the program is for 20. Is the City of Boston purchasing the other 8?
I can comment on that.
Yeah.
So year over year, BPS DOT has a fleet replacement plan. So there's $7 million that's allocated to replacing our fleet every year. So this year, instead of buying propane or diesel buses, we're utilizing money from that $7 million that's already allocated to purchase.
How much of the $7 million?
So all of the $7 million is going towards purchasing buses. And just for clarification, for the record, the $350,000 is going to go towards like partially funding the 12 buses, because one electric bus price range between $300,000 to $350,000 per bus.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we're purchasing 20
Correct,
total.
correct.
$350,000 is going to help supplement the $7 million that we're already spending.
Yes,
Perfect. So the total cost is $7,350,000.
yes,
Or at least what we have allocated for it.
yes.
Councilor Braden, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay. I think those are all our questions. Is there anything else that you want to share with the city council before we move on to the next docket?
No, that's it. Thank you very
All right.
much for your time.
Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to be moving to the following docket. The next docket is docket 0539, a message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expand the account of $180,000 in the form of a grant for the Community First Partnership awarded by Mass Saves to be administered by the Environment Department. This grant is going to fund outreach and engagement with environmental justice communities to drive increased awareness and measurable participation in energy-efficient programs. And we are joined today by Commissioner Allison Brizius. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Commissioner, you have the floor.
Councilors, thank you for having me here today. As you said, my name is Allison Brizius, and I'm the Environment Commissioner for the City of Boston. Boston has been selected to receive a grant of $180,000 as part of the Mass Save Community First Partnership. This is a 3-year partnership with Mass Save with the goal of increasing Mass Save participation and bringing energy cost savings to residents, small businesses, houses of worship, and local nonprofits in East Boston, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. These are 4 environmental justice communities in Boston where residents have been paying into the Mass Save program like everyone else for many years, but they are not seeing the same benefits out of the program. With this grant, the city will be able to hire a community-focused energy advocate dedicated to this initiative to develop and implement outreach tailored to the languages and the communities in these priority neighborhoods. With the intentional outreach to these communities focusing on renters, residents whose primary language is not English, low to moderate income residents, and small businesses, we intend to share energy efficiency opportunities and provide emissions reductions, cost savings, and increased comfort to those residents and businesses. With historically high energy costs, this program can support residents that are particularly supporting those residents that are facing energy cost burdens, making their homes and businesses more efficient while supporting the city's carbon neutrality goals. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. At this moment, I will cede the floor to Councilor Braden. Do you have any specific questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. I love Mass Save. I think they do some great work, and my family have benefited greatly from the work they do. And I do remember back when the last big recession, 2008, that Renew Boston had a program that like community ambassadors to really make sure that the Mass Save money for weatherization and improved efficiency and insulation and new heating systems, all the rest of it, all that money that we got out into the neighbourhoods. How do you anticipate doing that outreach in this moment?
Absolutely. So thank you for that question, Councillor. We did run the Renew Boston program for many years in partnership with the Mass Save program. Did a lot of direct outreach through community events and sign-ups. Through this grant, we're looking for twofold, right? We're looking to revamp that engagement process. We've taken a close look at what was working. We want to re-envision it to make sure that it better meets the needs of residents today. And so we're going to be working closely with Mass Save, with partners that they will bring on, with community organizations to make sure that our outreach is focused in both identifying those barriers that residents in these communities are facing and is meeting residents where they are and where their needs are. And so we're going to use the lessons learned from this partnership and this pilot in these 4 communities to rebuild that Renew Boston program as a broader community-wide initiative.
So one thing I know that a lot of renters aren't aware of is that they can actually apply for Mass Save funds themselves with the cooperation of if their landlord, if they live in a really cold house that's badly insulated, that they can initiate that. So that would be an important factor.
Absolutely.
Is that something that that we're going to work with landlords as well to try and make that awareness, and tenants as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be a key part, is working with renters to help them understand that the program is there and that there are available options for them, and then where it's needed, connect with their residents and identify those barriers so that we can have more informed, revised programs in the future, and we can engage in the process of updating the Mass Save programs with the broader community.
Yeah, and the other thing is many people don't realize that they've already paid for this service.
They have.
It comes off their electricity bill every month.
Yeah.
So we hope that this is a success. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, and we look forward to working with all of the counselors in the districts to make sure that it is a success.
I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilor Braden. Can you share a little bit, just for the record, about the funding model for Mass Saves and how the fund is managed?
Sure,
How
Councilor.
much people pay into it?
Yeah,
or pays
so,
into it?
so just as Councilor Braden and you said, everyone sees a charge on their electricity bill as a part of their normal bill. It's a small charge that's taken off that every resident or business pays into, and then it goes into a joint fund that is used to develop energy efficiency programs that all residents have access to. But in some neighborhoods, particularly in Boston, we see residents not taking advantage of those programs that they have paid into for a variety of reasons around barriers to just ability to access the program, aware of the program, comfort with folks coming into the home to do an audit, maybe not speaking the same language. So those are the types of barriers we want to address with trusted community partners so that we can bring those benefits to those residents that they've already paid for.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you talk to me a little bit about the management of the fund? At what level who's making the decisions, and at what level are community members involved in making decisions about what energy efficiency programs are ultimately being implemented with those funds?
Sure. So, Councilor, you're talking about the Mass Save program itself, or this program, the Mass Save Community First Partnership Grant?
No, the Mass Saves Fund specifically.
As a whole.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is a fund. There is a and we can get everyone a more detailed write-up if that would be helpful. But broadly speaking, there is an Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, and they have regular 3-year meetings to create a set of updated efficiency programs that they submit to the utilities, to the Department of Public Utilities for review and refinement. So there is opportunity for community engagement within that process, but again, enabling residents to understand that engagement and bring their desires into that process. There's always room for growth.
So are there any residents of the city or environmental justice organizers that are members of the advisory committee?
I can get you that information, the exact alignment. I know that we as the City of Boston do participate actively in those hearings, and there is a community represented seat that is currently held by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'd just like to acknowledge at this time that we've also been joined by City Council President Ed Flynn, District 2. President Flynn, if you have any questions around the Mass Save program, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Lauren. Apologize to the chair and to the panel for being late this morning. I want to say thank you to the chair for the important work and leadership you've been doing on environmental justice issues, not just in your district but across the city. So just want to say thank you to you, Councilor Lara, and to Councilor Braden as well. So my question on, so I want to ask a brief question on Mass Save, the program. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I know you highlighted a few 4 neighborhoods that are participating in the program. So I'm just wondering or asking, I guess. I represent Chinatown, which is predominantly a neighborhood of immigrants, low-income residents, mostly. Many of the seniors speak Cantonese and don't speak English. But is there an opportunity for this neighborhood to participate in this grant, in this program? I just want to advocate for my community because I know they're having a difficult time during this pandemic on financial related issues. So I just want to advocate for my constituents.
Oh, absolutely, Counselor, and thank you for that question. I'd like to clarify that while these are going to be the focus communities for this grant, the learning that we will take from this grant and just our current level of outreach to all communities of Boston is critical, and we understand the unique challenges, particularly in Chinatown. So we will be doing concurrent outreach in Chinatown and in all the other neighborhoods of the city, but in these neighborhoods, our intent is to do some very focused piloting and experimentation of different models that we hope to be able to bring to the other neighborhoods. But we won't wait. If we find something that's working in one of these pilot areas within this grant, we will absolutely be bringing it to Chinatown and all the other neighborhoods of the city.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the other reasons I should have mentioned is the Chinatown community has the highest asthma rate of any neighborhood, actually in Massachusetts, any community in Massachusetts. So I'm working with city officials on a lot of public health related issues. So can you work with my team, my office rather, and seeing if we can be more proactive in assisting this large immigrant community in trying to be as helpful as we can in assisting them?
Absolutely, Counselor, we will do that. And just a second element of clarification on why those 4 neighborhoods. The specific elements of the piece of the program that Mass Save Community First Partnership, as opposed to the whole Mass Save program, targets is 1 to 4 family homes traditionally, which we see less of in Chinatown. So we think that different engagements are going to make more sense in Chinatown and other very dense neighborhoods in the city.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the important work you're doing. Thank you, Councilor Lara.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Flynn. Councilor Braden, do you have any further questions?
No, I don't have any more questions. Good luck, and I hope we find some more better ways to do outreach. And
Thanks. We do as well. I appreciate that.
You know, it's interesting when you look at the patterns. It's the folks that speak English and have more access.
Yeah.
Who benefit the most, and yet everybody pays into this program, so everybody should have equal access. So good luck.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for your time, and to the administration for investing in this level of community outreach. Please consider my request on the record and official. I would really like to see who the members of the Mass Saves, the advisory group are, and would like to work to the administration to make sure that we have more community control and representation if possible there.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you so much. At this moment, we are going to be taking public testimony. If you are here with us in the chamber, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. For all testimony, please state your name, your neighborhood, or affiliation, and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. We're going to be hearing testimony on the first 2 dockets, and we are going to start with the people who are here in person, and then we're going to move into the public testimony on Zoom. First person that I have on the list is Garnett Brown. You can walk up to the microphone here. Okay, beautiful. Donald Yakako? Are you here for Sprague Pond? Yes. Okay, beautiful. Sylvie, is there anybody in the chamber to give testimony for the electrification of the Boston Public School buses or the Mass Save program? Beautiful. If we have anybody on Zoom who is here to give testimony on the electrification of the Boston Public School school bus fleet, or if you're here to give testimony about the Mass Safe program, please raise your hand so that members of central staff can move you to the front of the line. So if you're here to give public testimony about the electrification of the Boston Public School school bus fleet or the Mass Safe program, please raise your hand on Zoom using your reaction button so that central staff can identify you and we can hear your testimony now. Beautiful. It looks like we have no public testimony for both of those dockets. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for your time.
Thank you, Council.
At this moment, this hearing is going to take a brief recess. We will return at 11 a.m. to hear from Chief Mariama White-Hammond and have a conversation about docket number 0653. We're in recess. Everyone, I am calling this hearing into order. We're returning back from our recess. For the record again, my name is Kendra Lara, District 6 City Councilor. I am the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks. We are moving now on to our final docket of this hearing, docket number 0653, message in order for authorizing the Parks and Recreations Commission on behalf of the City of Boston to acquire by eminent domain a taking of 2 parcels on the western shore of Sprague Pond at 0 through 4 Lakeside Avenue in Hyde Park as a permanently protected parkland to be known as the Sprague Pond Shoreline Reserve, and to use Community Preservation Fund monies appropriated to the Parks and Recreation Department to award damages as determined by the Commission. I am joined this morning by my council colleague, Councilor Liz Braden, District 9, and joining us today from the administration, we have Chief Reverend Mariama White-Hammond, the Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space, Aldo Gearing, Senior Planner of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department, Joseph Bagley, City Archaeologist and Director of Archaeology, and I'm assuming that we will be joined by Paul Sutton? Paul Sutton, Urban Wilds Program Manager for the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. I will now turn the floor over to our panel. Mr. Gearing, you have the floor.
Oh, great. All right, I'm going to turn on the slideshow.
Beautiful.
I want to thank the chair, Kendra Lara, and Councilor Braden for inviting us to speak this morning. And as you mentioned, our panel is made up of Chief White-Hammond, Joe Bagley, who's the Chief City Archaeologist, and Paul Sutton, who's our Urban Wilds Manager for the Parks Department.
Mr. Gearing, can I ask you to move the microphone closer to you or speak loud?
Oh.
It's difficult to hear, and people are listening on Zoom as well.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
All right. So we're here to have a hearing on the order to have the City Council authorize the Park Commission to take the properties at 0 and 4 Lakeside Avenue to provide public access and to protect the various types of resources on this property in perpetuity. We've been seeking to acquire this land. It's been sort of something that we've been eyeing for many, many years now. The monies from the the Community Preservation Fund and a state park grant will help to pay for this. The City Council has previously approved accepting and expending this state grant money back in December of 2021. It's currently undeveloped and it's vegetated with trees and grasses. It provides scenic access to Sprague Pond and the Great Blue Hill. We're hoping to create a passive recreation-oriented park with paths and access to fishing and scenic viewing. And we also hope, with the help of Paul Sutton, to ecologically restore the site using native vegetation, all to happen in a later project. The acquisition was recommended by the Boston Natural Areas Network, and in 2011, the city also recommended it in the Hyde Park Neighborhood Strategic Plan that was overseen by the BRA. They engaged in an extensive multi-year series of community meetings. Open space protection and expansion was a main goal of the community, and the acquisition of a Sprague Pond waterfront park was a major recommendation of the plan. Within the state-designated Ponkapaug Pond Foul Meadow Area of Critical Environmental Concern, this park is part of that. The officials at EOEA do extensive research to determine where that line is drawn. To have included this site in there is definitely a measure of how important this is from an environmental point of view. Sprague Pond was recently designated last year, as a matter of fact, by DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, as a Great Pond. Great ponds are ponds that are now or have been historically 10 acres or more. And so because of that, they get protection via the Chapter 91. And it's also, again, state law that Great Ponds should be public for the purpose of boating thereon and open to all inhabitants of the Commonwealth for fishing purposes. So once it was declared a Great Pond, all the land below the water surface became property of the state. The only rub is that the state doesn't automatically have access to that water. If every parcel around is owned by private entities, there's no chance to get in. So we're looking to, so it's a policy of the state to try to encourage access. There's a public access board that helps to fund projects to enable folks to fish or boat on these waters. And so we're actually working to carry out this state policy. It's considered also within a environmental justice neighborhood as determined by state guidelines. As we mentioned here, that these EJ populations are in densely populated urban neighborhoods in and around the state's oldest industrial sites. And the Reedville area is known as a historic industrial area, and it's still to this day one of the most heavily industrialized parts of the city. This fact of being in this environmental justice neighborhood, it was a point in our favor when we applied for the state grant money. Also, as anyone who has traveled in that area knows, because of that heavily industrialized development in this area, there's incredibly high vulnerability to heat. And so the University of Massachusetts has done studies on this and determined that this area is among the most vulnerable to high heat events. And so keeping this vegetated site with access to water will help maintain a cooling zone in this area that people can be able to access during high heat events. But some of the most compelling reasons for authorizing this taking is historical and cultural and archaeological. The former Camp Meigs was an extensive training camp during the Civil War era, encompassing large swaths of land around Sprague Pond, including this site. And this camp was where the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiment trained, the first military unit consisting of black soldiers to be raised in the North during the Civil War. And I just want to emphasize, the point of raising troops in the North. They came from all over the North, and even many were escaped slaves from the South. Massachusetts, because of its history, it's being known as a important center of abolitionist movement, was welcoming to this type of development, whereas certain other northern states did not favor this type of action. And so we are now seen as a nationally significant site here, rather than just simply something that's only important to city or state history. A letter that I recently obtained from a historian who's focused on the Massachusetts 54th and written a book about that. There are two key sites that interpret the history of the 54th. Fort Wagner, which of course was seen in the climax of the movie Glory, down in South Carolina. The fort's long ago disappeared, but the island that it's on is now eroding away. So this parcel here, which is pretty much the last undeveloped tract within the original Camp Meigs, can still yield artifacts and other evidence of the occupation by these troops, and also we see it as a suitable site for memorial and interpretation. It's also considered archaeologically sensitive for ancient Native American occupation, and I'm going to kind of leave it at that. Joe Bagley, our chief archaeologist, will expand on that much more, much better than I can. So I just want to just point out on the map that the Massachusetts tribe was in this eastern area of Massachusetts. The folks in the who first colonists encountered them, and the name of their tribe was the origin of the name of our state. The Massachusetts Historical Commission became aware of our project, and because it's a state grant, they're required to comment on this project, and they commented in favor of it. They saw that acquiring this property for open space and recreation will enable folks like our city archaeologists to do investigations and preserve any historic and archaeological resources that may be present there. And just to close, the acquisition of this property, besides providing historic and archaeological resources, will allow the public to access it for health, recreational, natural, and scenic values. It's something that I've mentioned, we've had it on our radar, but because of the limitations budget-wise on acquisition, we haven't been able to do this until the city's residents voted in favor of the Community Preservation Act. Now that we have Community Preservation Act funds, we applied for an open space acquisition fund. The council has agreed with the Community Preservation Committee that such a fund was needed, and so we're hoping to use these monies for this acquisition. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to have him.
Thank you, Mr. Gearing. Mr. Bagley, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm going to give a second while the second presentation is open, unless it's the next slide.
Take your time.
I think we need to go to the next presentation with the archaeology slides.
Great. Can we get somebody for central staff to load up the second presentation, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And while that's happening, thank you, counselors. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Aldo, for this opportunity to speak today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. We only have this one presentation.
I sent two.
No?
So there should be a presentation that was emailed to Chantal, emailed it to central staff. Thank you.
She's probably listening in now, so.
Okay, so she said that they had both decks that we can, is there someone we should send it to?
Carrie Jordan. While we wait, a reminder that we are going to be taking public testimony for each of the dockets and for this docket specifically. If you're here with us in the chamber, please remember to sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. For all testimony, please state your name and neighborhood or affiliation and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. Please sign up again on the sheet near the chamber entrance. If you are interested in testifying virtually, and you're watching on Zoom, please email ccc.ep@boston.gov for the link. Again, if you're interested in testifying virtually, please email ccc.ep@boston.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll be speaking today about the archaeological sensitivity of Sprague Pond specifically, which is more of a predictive statement for what could be there archaeologically. So for native archaeological sensitivity, what I look for as an archaeologist is 4 key things. Proximity to water. The sites should be high and dry, meaning they're not going to be wet like a wetland. The view shed of the site, and if it's near other known sites that have been documented before. So in this particular site on the western shore of Sprague Pond, there's actually a pretty decent topographic overlook, especially towards the southern end of the property, that looks across Sprague Pond to the east, across the Neponset River, and then towards the Blue Hills. Especially at the southern end of the island of the property, this knoll overlooking the pond is a particularly decent space for a native encampment of some kind or use area, because it is lifted away from the water to an extent that you could live close to the water, have close access to the water, but to not necessarily be threatened by any flooding that occurs around the pond naturally, or when the spring runoff season causes the Neponset to flood potentially up to the river. This is a view looking across the property during the winter, showing the kind of slope down to the water, but also just to the left of this image, the beginning of the Blue Hills, which are, it's hard to show how prominent they are visible from the property in a photograph. So I've pulled up a topographic image to show the eastern view shed from the site of the western shore of Sprague Pond across the Great Blue Hills. So during my walkover visit with the Massachusetts tribe, specifically Ferris Gray, the Sagamore of the tribe, this was one of the things that he immediately pointed out as a potential significance to this property, that it's one on a natural pond. There's only 5 natural ponds in the city of Boston. So as a resource, this is extremely rare. It also has a direct view east towards the rising sun, and that view also passes over the Neponset River and, most importantly, across the Great Blue Hills, which are one of the most significant locations to the Massachusetts tribe for their culture. It's their winter living area traditionally. So all of that view shed potentially creates an opportunity for there to be a ceremonial site in addition to a habitation site on this property, according to the Massachusetts that was on the site with me for the walkover. In addition to the view shed and the topography, it is currently within the boundaries of a documented archaeological site according to the state archaeologist files called the Manor Site, aka DIS site, which I don't know what that refers to, also known as 19 NF 42. That's a very large area that was collected in the early 20th century whose exact boundaries have not been defined. However, the outlines that are currently recorded include this entire area and much of Reedville. It's also within 1 kilometer of the National Register listed Blue Hills Multiple Resource National Register District, which is an ancient native quarry area that includes parts of Randolph, Milton, Quincy, and is in very close proximity to the site. The Capon School site and the Neponset Bridge sites are also there, with the Neponset Bridge site dating to the Woodland period, about 3,000 years old. I can't provide a map where these locations are. We're actually not allowed to make the site location data publicly available. However, the names of the sites give some indication as to where they are located in the landscape. Moving past the native sensitivity, I also reviewed the project for historical archaeological sensitivity. What I typically will review, primarily through maps, is the potential for documented use of the site in historic time periods and whether or not the site itself could be preserved. An example of a site that could have been historic that had been lost includes places downtown where we could have 17th century buildings, but later development destroyed them. The state has inventoried Camp Meigs as BOS.HA.5, which means it's actually a state inventoried historical archaeological site, which means that this is both within a native documented and historical documented archaeological site boundaries existing. I wanted to share a few maps showing some of the historic use of the property, primarily to show that its use was fairly passive up into the late 1800s, from the historic period after the arrival of Europeans. This map from 1831 shows the western shore of Sprague Pond being near Sprague Street, which is the current day street that's there today. But the dots on this map show the locations of houses, and that this is not a heavily used area in the 1800s. I could not find any detailed enough maps from the 17th or 18th centuries to show that this property was used, but based on this map from the 1830s, I don't think it was heavily used in the 17th or 18th century beyond farming, agricultural land, things that would not leave a pretty heavy archaeological record historically. This 1851 map continues to show not a lot happening around the property. But in the 1860s, we have the development of Camp Meigs, and a few of the maps that I was able to find online, this is a reconstruction map that is not contemporary to the 1860s, but shows about 100 years of use of Camp Meigs, with the property indicated at the bottom of the map in very close proximity. It's difficult to see in this image, but in very close proximity to barracks that are located across the street on Sprague Pond. And I wanted to create this overlay map to show the relative location of Camp Meigs to Reedville neighborhood. And what you can see in this image is that the majority of the area where the 54th and other related people and infrastructure was located on the western side of Sprague Pond, which is now under an industrial building complex, and also on the eastern side of the railroad in what's now the Reedville neighborhood, and a very large industrial building at the southern end of the property. What this means is that while there may be other parts of Camp Meigs that would be historically more significant, such as the places that the troops were living, this may be the largest undeveloped piece of Camp Meigs that still survives to today. And includes on a later map, this map being, I could not find a date on this map, but it appears to be closer to the actual date of the Civil War itself, showing Sprague Pond significantly larger than it is today, predominantly just the lower quarter of this map, the pond on this map, with slightly more detail on the location of the barracks. And in this map, it shows very close to this property, stables. Again, overlaid on top of a contemporary map, we see a similar arrangement where most of the buildings and barracks are under the Reedville neighborhood, and the other outskirts buildings are under industrial buildings as well, with this property being in close proximity to the stables related to the Mass 54th. Here is a much closer view. The project area would be located just to the right of the orange road going down the middle of the map, possibly with the stables actually overlapping the property, although I can't quite tell from the details of this map, but at the very least it's in close proximity. What I take this to mean is that even if the stables are not directly on top of Sprague Pond, this is still in close proximity to enough activity areas from the Mass 54th that it's highly likely that the folks that were living here in the camp were directly participating in activities at this property that could have an archaeological signature. And the part that makes me most excited is that this being a lake and not part of the barracks or some of the more military feeling spaces of Camp Meigs, this is a place of probably leisure activities, including recreational swimming, bathing, and activities that would just be a little bit of showing the humanity of these people that are living on this camp and their daily lives. And I think that could be a really important part beyond the military aspects of the folks that were at the Mass 54th, to look into their daily lives as people on this property, trying to have some resemblance of normalcy during a war. The last thing I wanted to talk about was some of the later development. Again, the sensitivity has to have a lack of development to show that there could be an archaeological site. What I was able to find was that the only historically known that I can find development on the property happened in the early 20th century with the creation of the Davenport Ice House at the northern end of the property, where the bend of the road is down to the river. This is an ad that I was actually able to find in the documents from 1909, where Charles Davenport of Hyde Park has built an ice house on Sprague Pond in Reedville, which will hold 4,000 tons of ice, and he has installed runs, chains, and scrapers there to in readiness of harvesting. Mr. Davenport has bought his ice during the past few years. Not only is this indicating what the use of the property was as an ice house, but also indicates some of the types of artifacts that we could find on the property, including chain scrapers and some of the landscape modifications that would have happened in order to be able to bring the ice that was cut on the pond up the hill, the slight hill, to the ice house. Some of the earlier images of the aerial images show a possible kind of sluiceway along the shoreline that I haven't been able to really look at carefully in the weather conditions that we had when I was there, but that may actually indicate a historic infrastructure for moving ice across the landscape as well. Related to that, there is one standing foundation on the property, which I saw this winter for the first time after the leaves came off. There's a chance that this could be related to the 54th, but I think it's more likely to be a foundation associated with the Davenport Ice House. Here's an outline of it because the photo's a little bit unclear, showing kind of a rectangular structure that sticks out of the hillside a bit. So in general, just to kind of wrap up the point that I'm trying to make today, so the property is archaeologically sensitive for the preservation of archaeological data related to the ancient Massachusetts presence on the property and due to its location within the historic Camp Meg sites. There are currently no protections for archaeology on the property. It is not a landmark, and there are no state triggers for archaeological review beyond commenting. If owned by the city, the Parks Department and Archaeology Program are committed to work with the Massachusetts tribe and the local community on parks design and any archaeology needed for parks improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley. Does anybody from the administration, does that conclude your presentation?
So, just worth noting that while many people know that parks and environment are part of my cabinet, so is historic preservation. And so it's been actually a really great opportunity to really think about a variety of things that the cabinet is focused on, everything from climate change mitigation to giving people more access to open space, particularly water access. We have a number of places where water access is possible, but very, very little of it do we control at the level that we would be able to in this particular case, because most of our shoreline, for instance, and most of the other water features in the city are controlled by the state or are not natural. Like, I know everybody loves the, swan boats, but that's not a legitimate pond that we could do things like boating and fishing on. So we're excited for this opportunity, not just to move this forward, but to do it in a way that would allow us to have people recreate and have some space to play there, but also to be more aware of the historical significance of the space. So I will just say that we, of course, want the City Council to approve this, and I am mentioning that if we move forward in the acquisition, this is the first time that we're talking, but it will certainly not be the last time as we think about how to animate the space and make it accessible and allow people to connect with a part of history that they don't always know. We did recently rededicate the 54th monument, and we look forward to, if we move forward on this, engaging some of the families and descendants that were at that space, as well as Native communities around thinking about how we can create an opportunity for more folks to engage in a more natural setting through this acquisition.
Thank you, Chief. And so before I pass on to Councilor Braden for her questions, can you please be clear about what you're asking? What are you acquiring exactly?
Right, okay, so there are a couple pieces to this, I think, and I want to also make sure people understand why there's some time sensitivity. In order to acquire this land, and we started this process last year. However, then the owner changed hands, and so then we had to pause the process until there was a new owner, and then that allowed us to begin the process again. So I do want to note, if you're wondering why has it taken so long, it's because of that.
This is empty, uninhabited land.
Currently, yes.
Thank you.
What we are asking is that the city move forward in acquiring this land, which requires both the consent of the mayor, but also the city council to move forward in this acquisition. It is worth noting that we, again, have received funds from CPA, which we are supposed to expend, although they would probably give us some grace. But what is more important is that we have also received funds from the state because it has been designated as significant. But those funds need to be activated by June 30th, later this month. And so we're asking that the council approve the acquisition so that we can receive those state funds and expend them in such a way that we do not lose access to them.
Thank you. Councilor Breeden, you have the floor.
I just got a text, Representative Consalvo has begged the indulgence to see if he could testify out of order, so
He is. State Representative Consalvo is going to testify out of order. He is first on our list.
Very good, thank you. I'll keep it very brief because I also have to dash in a few minutes. I'm really excited. I was there for the presentation for the CPA presentation, so I'm really excited about this acquisition. I love the work that you do, Joe. I wish we could clone you and have a more robust archaeological department in the city. But yeah, thank you for your great work. I think this is an incredibly important site, historically and archaeologically, and just even from an environmental justice point of view. And I certainly have no hesitation in support. I don't have any questions because I've followed this pretty closely. But thank you for your advocacy, and I hope we can move this forward. And I'm very excited also to hold up the Native American history of this site as well, and bring that to the fore, because so often we're surrounded by we live in a place that has a lot of Native American history, but so often we forget about it and it's not recognized or celebrated. So thank you for all of that. And I know this is a particular passion of yours, Joe, because I know when you come to Alston Brighton, you talk a lot about our Native American history as well. So I wish you all the best with this.
Yes.
Thank you.
So one thing maybe worth noting really quickly is just that we are trying to figure out how we think about the lands that the city owns and has jurisdiction over, and making sure that there is definite access and consultation, which is why before we move forward with this, we made sure there was consultation directly with tribal leaders, because the first principle of equity is nothing about us without us. And so we hope that also as we acquire this land, we'll be able to continue that conversation around what access should be for the tribe, how this might be, there might be some shared agreements around how to steward and protect and connect people with this land.
And ceremonial space or things that they might want
For
to do
sure.
on the site. Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Councilor Breeden. Okay, I have questions. In one of your slides, you talked about how the BRA followed an extensive multi-year series of community meetings. The BRA, which I'm assuming is now the BPDA.
Yes.
Correct? I don't trust the BPDA. What is extensive multi-year series? What is extensive to you? What are you defining as extensive? What did the community engagement process look like?
So my understanding is that the engagement process was much more, there were conversations about development of this land previously.
Okay.
We are now suggesting to move it out of potential development into protected open space.
Okay. So the community process was about the development of the land, not about this.
Well,
Yeah,
it's about the whole neighborhood.
Okay.
I participated in many of those meetings as a representative of the Parks Department. At least 2 years, if not more, of these meetings. It took a while, and if Representative Consalvo is listening in, he'll probably chime in about that, because I'm sure he, as a counselor, probably followed it as well. But yeah, there were extensive meetings about every topic related to the land in Hyde Park, and this came up, and is the page I point out talks about acquisition of this property for a waterfront park.
Great.
However, when you look inside, because the principle that you can't zone private property as open space, that takes away development value. They instead put on a zoning category. It's called Conservation Protection Subdistrict. So it mandates locating the development in ways that, try to respect the natural features. But as you can see in that, executive summary, what the community really felt needed to happen was create a waterfront park here. And you'll see from all the letters, et cetera, that you've been getting and testimony you'll hear later on that's still an important value.
Great. And so that included, I'm assuming, the abutters of the area.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're
What
definitely in favor.
What are the challenges? What is the oppositional voice in the neighborhood?
The person who wanted to develop the land.
The person who wanted to develop land?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. What is the involvement of the Massachusetts tribe? And how much decision-making power do they have in this process? And why not come to an agreement to return the land back to them and use it? There we go.
All right. The conversation that I had with the Massachusetts on the property was with their representative, Ferris Gray the Sagamore, who was the number 2 in the tribe. At the time that we were on the property, the specific ask that we had of the tribe was for their take on whether there could be something on the property that was significant to the tribe to make a decision as to whether or not we should be supporting tribal consideration of the land with the development in mind. So the actual decision-making on what would happen with the property, co-management, things like that, is still pending the ability to actually have the land preserved as an open space so that we can then have those conversations. So the conversation was really about development or preservation. That being said, we're working with the Parks Department right now on scheduling conversations with an existing urban wild that is to get to a co-management agreement with the tribe, and that's really going to form a template that we're going to be able to bring to other properties in the city, like the chief mentioned, for co-management of the property with the tribe. One of the issues that has come up previously with turning over land with the tribe is that the tribe itself does not have federal recognition, which means they don't necessarily have the financial resources to pay for the insurance that would come along with the management of a property that's also an open space. The insurance essentially is too costly. So at the moment, the preference is for co-management of a property where the city retains ownership, but the tribe has a seat at the table and a leadership seat at the table. But that could be something that we could discuss down the road. But it's not currently the priority of the tribes.
And the Massachusetts tribe has also agreed that that's the best course of action at the moment.
Specifically to the...
To maintain it in
Specifically, the
city.
Massachusetts tribe is not federally recognized.
And so specifically, they're just like, yes, we can't, we don't have the capacity, the city should maintain ownership, and we would like to co-manage it.
That specific conversation was with the Babson Cookson tract that we had.
Okay.
But it's
So
similar.
this is not the only space in which we're having this conversation.
Got it.
There's Babson Cookson is the space that we started that conversation and started actually leaning into some real details about that piece of land.
Yep.
While those conversations happened beginning, I think, the fall of last year, this also came up. And so we sort of said, let's let that process continue as it has been. This is another site that we think has a similar possibility as that one. And so as we figure out how that is moved, then we can apply some of those same principles to this. And then there's now another site with which we will also be having some conversations. So I think, there's a lot of space for it to evolve. The conversation is exciting, complex, but is moving forward.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a beautiful project. For context, and Chief Whitehammond and I know each other, but for context for the other folks at the administration who are here, I come from a neighborhood that was completely decimated a lot through eminent domain to put a highway through it because it was for the quote-unquote greater good. And so I have a lot of questions when we are looking to take land. Obviously, this is not a highway, so I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that, but I'm really curious about what the impact of this is going to be to the neighborhood.
Well, I think what I'll say is when folks first approached me, I was interested. I was also concerned about whether there was any layer of NIMBYism in there. And I think I was very transparent, and I think as said, is that I have concerns when white people speak on behalf of people of color about what needs to move forward. And because of that, we facilitated and then received a direct letter from the descendants and those folks who've been working around commemoration of the 54th Regiment, and had a direct consultation with the tribe, because I think stating history but not including the people who are the descendants of that history has also been done, and from my perspective, that's just appropriation. And so we have, again, there's much more work to be done. I think we got a clear sense from folks, do not develop this land, we want to preserve it. There's a lot more conversation about what does preservation look like? How do we want to invite people to be part of that? How do we make sure that they do that in a good way? We don't want other people who are not Native holding ceremonies. There are lots of other conversations to have around how this is done in a way that respects the history and the dignity and the stewardship. But I think there was clear agreement across everyone. We should take it off of the market, because if it got developed, none of those things would be viable possibilities.
I don't have any further questions. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we move on to public testimony? Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. At this moment, we're going to be taking public testimony. For all testimony, please state your name and neighborhood or affiliation, and keep your comments to 2 minutes. We're going to start with the folks who are on Zoom, and we're going to start with State Representative Rob Consalvo, who is on Zoom with us. Good morning, Rep. Consalvo.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you so much for allowing me to go out of order here first. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. Can you give us a second?
Yeah, actually, I'm in my car, so I'm off video.
No, I mean, we can't see the Zoom at all, not you physically.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry.
There we go. All right. You have the floor, Rep. Consalvo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to go first, and apologize that my schedule is dictating that. But I'm so glad to be here. Always love coming back to the City Council to talk about important issues and the great work that you're doing. I am in strong support as the state representative for the 14th Suffolk District. I want to thank the mayor for her involvement and for putting this forward, and particularly want to thank the chief, I echo all of the testimony she said, such thoughtful testimony, and I want to thank her for her thoughtful and balanced approach in using a lens of equity through this whole process to get us where we are today. This has extremely strong support from the community. This is an issue that's gone on long before I got in. I like to joke that I'm coming in the bottom of the ninth to help with the save, but was proud to support that as the new state representative. It has strong support from many different segments within the 14th Suffolk District, and particularly the Hyde Park community, the Hyde Park Historical Society, who is in strong support and has worked on this issue, along with Reedville Watch, which is the local community group in Reedville that actually has the physical jurisdiction of the area where this is located, is in strong support and has submitted letters, as has West Fairmount Hill Community Group, which is the most adjacent community group next to Reedville, closest to historic Camp Meigs and the Sprague Pond. It's important to note that the West Fairmount Hill Community Group also leads the Racial Justice Forum in Hyde Park, and the leader of that organization, Marcia Kim, is doing amazing work around that space and is in strong support of this. And so, as was the Hyde Park Neighborhood Association as well. We were excited to work with I think you heard from the chief that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is partnering with us as well, and Senator Rush and I were proud to support the effort to secure a park grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, close to approximately $500,000 grant, in addition to the CPA funding. So this is a true state-city partnership, as well as that, and if this was already said before I got on, I apologize, the fact that Sprague Pond has been officially designated a Great Pond, which is an important designation from DEP that provides a lot of other special protections around the environmental nature of the pond, I believe I'm correct in saying that the only other great pond in the in the city of Boston is the Jamaica Pond. So it shows you the historical significance of the Great Pond designation. So factoring all that in and a strong community support from multiple community groups and multiple neighborhood residents, grateful for the strong support of the mayor and particularly, again, the chief and her thoughtful and equitable approach to this. I couldn't be more excited to support this docket 0653 that's before your committee. And Madam Chair, I'd ask that the committee issue a favorable report, and I would urge the council to also vote to move this forward as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, State Representative Rob Consalvo, for taking time in your busy schedule to come and testify in favor of this docket today. I really appreciate it. We are going to move on to the next member of the public. We have Patricia Alvarez, who is with us also on Zoom. Patricia Alvarez, is Patricia here with us?
Sorry, I didn't unmute.
No, no worries. Patricia, you have the floor and you have 2 minutes. Can you please, for the record, share your name, neighborhood, or affiliation?
Yes, my name is Patricia Alvarez. I'm a Hyde Park resident. I also work for the Southwest Boston Community Development Corporation, which serves Hyde Park and Rosedale. And I'm part of the Fairmont Indigo CDC Collaborative, which serves Hyde Park, Mattapan, and Dorchester to address climate change issues. Really, everything I was going to say has already been said. That 0 to 4 Lake Side Avenue is a historically and environmentally important and must be preserved in perpetuity. As everyone has said, it's a special site for the Massachusetts Native American tribe. It is the site where the 54th Regiment was trained. Some soldiers may have died and may be buried there, from what I understand. It is the shoreline to Sprague Pond, which, as everyone has said, is a great pond. It provides the only public access to the pond. It's a place where there are trees and grasses, a place for residents to enjoy nature and fish, and it offers a beautiful view of the Blue Hills. I also want to say, we run a youth jobs program. They do environmental stewardship work. So it's a place where you can go to learn about our city, our state, and our national history, and where they can honor the legacy of the Massachusetts tribe and of the 54th Regiment. It's also a place where you can learn about the environment, why conservation land and great ponds are so important as a sanctuary to wildlife, and how they help protect us from climate change. So for all these reasons, this site has to be preserved. And I just want to mention finally that because CPA funds will be used to purchase the site, state law requires that an entity other than the city holds the conservation restriction for the site, which means evaluating the site every year, reporting to the city if there's any illegal activity happening. Southwest Boston CDC has agreed to hold the conservation restriction, and our organization as a nonprofit with our youth, our green team, youth staff will be doing that work. We've been doing this work for 14 years, so we have the skills, the commitment, the knowledge to get it done. So I really, really urge the City Council to vote in favor of taking of this land. I think it will be a huge benefit to the entire community and the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for your testimony. Next up, we have Laquissa Burke. Please correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name. And also on Zoom.
Oh, thank you, Kendra. I appreciate. Thank you guys for having me here today. I really appreciate hearing everybody's testimony about Sprague Pond. It looks like it's a very beautiful piece of property. I haven't had a chance to go over there yet, but I want to thank all of the City Council for being here today and listening in on this case. For me, one of the issues that I'm having with this taking of Sprague Pond is that I do not agree with this eminent domain, and I just don't agree because I feel this could be a slippery slope for the city of Boston. I understand that there was conversations for years in regards to this piece of land, but at first it was being spoken about in regards to development. And now all of a sudden it wants to be, historical preservation. And I feel like if the city really wanted this land, they could have approached the owner of this property and actually offered them something for the property, but not wait until it switches hands to now want to, pull all of the tricks out the bag now that, he's able to actually try to produce something on this land. And I understand the whole historical preservation and I understand access to the park, but I also understand that this is a wealth building opportunity as well for a man of color who's dedicated his life to the city of Boston. And as well as his wife has dedicated her life to the city of Boston within their occupations. And I feel that they should be able to live in a neighborhood that is viewed as safer and better for him, according to, the amount of kids that he has. He has a really large family. And I just think that this will be a great opportunity for him to be able to build, and also representing, the Black people that actually did fight in the war. This is a way of having that piece of generational wealth that maybe historically Black people have been kept out of. And I don't believe that it's just this one piece of land where, they just walked over and they did work. All of the houses around that area, I'm sure, have some type of historical value. And I don't think anybody's looking at that piece. And I would like for you guys to really consider to not take this land by eminent domain. And if you do decide to take it by eminent domain, I feel like you should offer Mr. Brown something comparable in the neighborhood that he would like, the same amount of land, so that he can still live out his dream, but then living in the city of Boston. But for me, I am opposed to the city taking this by eminent domain. Again, this is a slippery slope where people can just say this is historical preservation. And by the way, I did not agree for CPA funds to actually be used as eminent domain. I didn't think that that was part of the deal when we all agreed to actually put in extra money as a homeowner in the city of Boston. But thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys for having me here today. And again, I oppose this.
Thank you so much, Laquissa, for your testimony. We're gonna move on to Helena Tong, who is also on Zoom.
Yes, good morning. It's afternoon now. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Laura and members of the committee. My name is Helena Tong. I live at 20 Friendship Road in Hyde Park. I submit this testimony on behalf of myself and the board of my neighborhood association, Belknap Family Neighborhood Association, also located in Hyde Park. On July 9, 2019, Mr. Brown presented his request before the Zoning Board of Appeals for variance relief for his proposed development at Lakeside in Hyde Park. The board approved his request. There was no opposition, and the representative from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services presented the mayor's approval and mentioned there was no opposition from direct abutters. I was in attendance at the ZBA session that day and witnessed Mr. Brown's presentation to the board. On February 3rd, 2021, I watched an NBC In Your Town series titled Land of Liberty, Hyde Park, and the 54th Regiment. A couple of key points from that broadcast I noted were, Mr. Brown mentioned that he was looking to build a house in the city of Boston for his family. And when he was looking for a house in the city of Boston, he could not find one in his price range. Number two, Mr. O'Brien from the Hyde Park Historical Society also noted in the series that they were currently in conversations with the developer and the owner to buy out their development rights. And number three, I also noted a snapshot of the October 29, 2020 letter Councilor Arroyo refers to in the series and submitted on behalf of the Hyde Park Historical Society's requesting to him for his support. And a portion of that letter reads, I am writing in support of Hyde Park Historical Society's application for $1.5 million in the Community Preservation Act funds for the acquisition of Lakeside Sprague Pond parcels located in Reedville, Hyde Park, end quote. On May 27th, 2021, I attended the State Department of Environmental Protection's hearing on the designation of Sprague Pond as a Great Pond, proposed by the Hyde Park Historical Society. I purposely attended the hearing because I knew that the lakeside parcels abutted the pond and wanted to find out if the pond was designated as a Great Pond, would it interfere with Mr. Brown's approved development? This question was one of the questions asked in the hearing by the potential developer, Mr. Gregory, to which the chair deferred to having conversations with the developer offline. I also noted that while great historical reference was given about the 54th Regiment and other Native American tribes as part of Hyde Park Historical Society's presentation, no members of the 54th Regiment or Native American tribes were noticeably present or spoke at the hearing. On October 27, 2021, the City of Boston Parks and Recreation Department announced the Boston Parks and Recreation Department received $1.5 million from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Of this amount, $387,000 would be used to help, and I emphasize that word, help fund the acquisition of the land for the new Sprague Pond Shoreline Reserve in Hyde Park, located at 024 Lakeside Avenue. On November 8, 2021, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs issued the following executive decision in regards to the environmental notification form submitted on October 8, 2021.
Ms. Helena?
Quote, yes, I'm just about done. I have
Okay,
two more
I've given you an extra minute, so please wrap
Okay,
up.
I'm summarizing. I hereby determine that this project does not require an environmental impact report. The passing down of generational wealth and assets within Black and Brown communities is dissipating at an exponential rate. To be able to purchase or build a home for one's family is the beginning of a historical marker, legacy, and the potential to cement economic foundation for one's children. Mr. Brown should be afforded this opportunity, especially having successfully accomplished all and more of what has been required. I ask the city to oppose this eminent domain taking, and I respectfully request that the committee ask the city to meet with Mr. Brown and to find the necessary means that are needed to make an agreement that is supportive to all interested parties. Taking this action would embody the legacy of the 54th Regiment for what they fought and died for.
Thank you, Ms. Tong. I appreciate it. Next person to give us testimony is Darius Gregory, who is also with us on Zoom. Mr. Gregory, you have the floor. Please introduce yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Madam Chair, Honorable Council, my name is Darius Gregory with Gregory Investment Group. I am a owner of the property alongside my partner who's present, Mr. Garnett Brown. I sat back and I've been continuing to sit back and listen and watch the manipulation and the hard-fought tactics of preventing us from moving forward with this development. And I want to be crystal clear that in 2017, this was a decrepit, abandoned, unappreciated piece of land. My partner and I saw the opportunity. Myself and him, we both identify as African-American males, and we wanted to create an opportunity for ourselves as a minority-owned business owner. Him as a resident, his wife as a resident of Boston, they reached out to me to help them find a piece of property where they could build. This was that opportunity. We created that equity. And as as Ms. Tong just clearly laid out, we went through all the proper channels. We went and got approval from the city of Boston. And my question is, why send us down the rabbit hole just to ultimately exercise a hostile taking? There's nothing nice about it. You wasted our money, our opportunity costs, and our time. We're not, a $1 billion corporation. We are a small development corporation looking to find opportunities to provide for our family, but then also provide opportunity for him to get shelter so he can fulfill his residency requirement as a Boston police officer and as his wife as a Boston educator. These are the facts. Everything else I've heard today is hypothetical. Nobody's put a shovel on the ground 100 years ago. Civil War has been over way more than 100 years ago. And why do you want to commemorate them now? In this way, by taking property that's owned by black men. We own it. It's black owned. Why are folks, and I'll get very specific if you like, Frank O'Brien and the rest of his team that he's assembled have used privilege, power, and influence to get their folks that they have in their network to perform for them to prevent us from moving forward. Not only do we have a variance, we ended up receiving our Conservation Commission approval when we filed our note of intent. They appealed that. Then we fought them in court over that over the last 4 years, and then we recently got our superseding order conditions issued to us. Guess what? They appealed that. Our attorney is actually simultaneously in the courtroom now fighting that appeal, looking to file a motion to dismiss. So these folks are very savvy. They're very well connected. And I want to tell you now, I can't advise my client, good friend, to go and move forward and build on this property where they have sent a clear and direct message. They don't want us there. They don't want us there. They don't want us to develop there. So at this point, I think you should. You should exercise this hostile taking. But understand, we're going to fight the good fight, and we have retained some of the best in the business, and we will see you in court. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Gregory. We are going to move into in-person testimony now. I think everybody who's on Zoom has testified now. I have a Donald here. Donald, can you please tell me how to pronounce your last name, sir?
What would you like, sir?
Right here in the front, this microphone.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The microphone right in front of you. Yes. Can you please state your name and affiliation for the record? And you have 2 minutes.
Is this working?
It is?
It is, okay. Donald Iacovone. I'm a permanent associate of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research at Harvard University. And I've spent my career writing history of the anti-slavery movement and African American history. When Governor Andrew approved formation of the Massachusetts 54th Regiment in January of 1863, Frederick Douglass said the time had finally come to smite with death the power that would bury government and your liberty in the same hopeless grave. Douglass would send 2 of his sons into 2 of the state's 3 black regiments. These units, as African Americans across the North felt in their hearts, symbolized their quest for full equality. They understood, as the New York Weekly Anglo-African proclaimed, that the eyes of the whole world now focused on them. As the first African-American federal unit raised in the North, the 54th's conduct, its bravery, its dedication, mattered more than any other regiment in the Union Army. The North's success, as even Abraham Lincoln understood, depended upon the African-American contribution. If the 54th had failed, if it somehow did not fulfill expectations, the entire Union war effort would have collapsed. The North needed the 179,000 African-American troops that ultimately served in the war to defeat the South. And if the 54th had failed, it would have jeopardized the entire Union campaign. All eyes rested on it. Everything depended upon its success, and it succeeded far beyond anything white Americans thought possible. The state's 3 black regiments, the 54th, 55th, and 5th Massachusetts Cavalry, all trained at Camp Meigs in Reedville. But they were not the only Civil War units to be born there. At least 28 state regiments formed there, and possibly as many as 20 more companies of other regiments, along with the possible discovery of Native American artifacts at the site in question. There is no question that preserving this location, part of the Commonwealth's most important Civil War training camp, has the most profound local, state, and national ramifications. It symbolizes Black and white contributions to preserving the Union and American liberty.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. I appreciate your testimony and your historical context of the area. Do we have members of the Allendale Coalition here with us? No? Okay. Sylvie Agudelo. No? You're not wanting to testify anymore? Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for coming. So we have our final testimony here, who is Mr. Garnett Brown. Mr. Garnett Brown, you're going to have 2 minutes to testify. Similarly, that what I've been doing with everybody else, I'll give you an extra 30 seconds if you go over time. Okay.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Garnett Brown. First and foremost, they're calling me a big developer. I'm not a big developer. I'm a city of Boston employee, a city of Boston residents for the last 40 years. I was born and raised in this city, and all I was trying to do is to be a good father, to be a good husband for my children. I have a wife. We have 6 children that I have to provide for, and as my children started to grow, the house that I live in Mattapan, we started to outgrow that. So I looked for an opportunity to purchase a house that would be adequate for my children. And in the city of Boston at that time, I could not afford anything that could fit my family needs. So I began to look for land so that I can build. To support my children and to give them a safe, family-friendly neighborhood, we entered this development process. This was me giving my kids something I had never had growing up in the city. I lived in some of the toughest neighborhoods in the city growing up, and I wanted a better for my children so that they would not go through the trauma I went through growing up in the middle of gang violence, drugs, and poverty. During the development process, we received approval from the City of Boston, including Zoning Board of Appeals, the Mayor's Office, and the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. At the Board of Appeals hearing on July 9th, 2019, the board voted unanimously to approve. There, the Mayor's Office also stated that at that time, an abutters meeting was held on April 29th, and we didn't encounter opposition from the community regarding the proposal. In their letter dated November 8th, 2021, the state's Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs stated this project, and I quote, "This project may now proceed to permitting and other approvals, and the project impacts are well below any mandatory environmental impact reports threshold. Boston Parks Department claims my property is culturally sensitive to the Black soldiers who served in the 54th Regiment. The city's open space and recreation plan makes no mention of the 54th Regiment and acknowledges private ownership. The current Camp Meade Memorial Park in Reedville was dedicated to the 54th Regiment in 1903. Taking our land to honor the 54th has not been the city's priority. One must ask, who are the members of the Native American tribes in the 54th Regiment that have been brought to the table by people claiming to act in their honor? Or have the oppressed been strategically referred to oppress those like them? I'm a descendant of African American slaves and Native Americans. Rather than commemorating the 54th Regiment, taking our land undermines the legacy by using our heritage against us."
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, can you please state for the record how much you paid for the land that you purchased?
$325 is what I purchased the land for.
In millions or thousands?
Thousands.
$325,000.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your testimony.
That does not include the soft cost, the hundreds of thousands of dollars I had to pay to get the work done, to get the permits, the lawyers' fees, and the missed opportunities.
How much would you total the cost, Mr. Brown?
I don't have that total in front of me. I spent all my life savings, took out a second mortgage on my home to get through this process. My partner and I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get to this process. We've been in this process for the last 3 years. I started it in 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate your testimony. That is going to conclude our public testimony. Questions for the administration. What is your acquisition plan? Are you offering comparable parcel? Are you offering comparable payment? I am more than happy to offer this to the city council and send it out of the committee and approve it if I feel like you are compensating.
Yep. So I want to just state a few things. So first of all, NIMBYism is real, and it was my exact concern when this was first brought to me. So I am now seeing if maybe on the other side of this process we can meet, but I was earlier told that we're not allowed to have conversations in the midst of this process. But I am hoping that at some point there can be some conversations.
Thank you, Chief.
I do want to also note that not just in this space, but in other spaces, my understanding is that our only option is what they're called a hostile taking. In fact, we were told in no uncertain terms by the law department, there is no such thing as a friendly taking. Because when I first heard about this opportunity, I was like, hey, maybe we can negotiate. And they were like, the legal way that it's set up for the city to acquire land doesn't allow that, which is why we were also not able to have a conversation in advance. So here's what I can say. That, as Mr. Brown said, he did purchase the land for $325,000. Part of the reason we moved forward with this is that my understanding is that Mr. Brown had listed the land to be sold for $1.6 million.
Okay.
And the way the process works is we can offer an amount that's decided based on some calculations. I'm not allowed to say this part.
Okay.
And Mr. Brown also has the ability to tally up and make clear what he thinks his damages are. Okay. And then that is where there's an ability to negotiate. What is frustrating, I'll say from my perspective, is my understanding is we are not allowed to negotiate before the process moves forward. So I do want to I want to just...
You're not legally allowed to negotiate before the process moves forward?
Because my understanding is that we are either allowed to offer the price that is the taxable price, which is never what anything is worth.
Of course.
Or we have to do it this way, and then we have to talk about damages.
Yeah.
That's the only two options. And I am sure he did not want to take the assessed value.
What is the amount
which I
that you're
believe the
offering?
assessed value.
We really can't speak about
So
that
this is
at this
the
time.
problem of this legal process. This is my
But
first time. I just want to be really clear. This
But
is
as
the first
chair
time I've
of this
moved to that.
committee, I am allowed to know in private, even if you cannot speak about it
Yes,
publicly.
we could talk offline, but we cannot say publicly. That is my understanding about what I can and can't say. I am hoping, because it is my understanding that after we move forward, there is the ability to have a conversation about what is called damages. At that time, Mr. Brown, my understanding is that all of the expenses paid can be tallied and be part of that conversation, as well as conversations around what fair market value would have been.
Okay.
But I do want to note in advance, I am not in love with the process and the way it works.
Of course.
And I have raised and done my own due diligence as I could, concerns about who's raising this,
Yeah.
about when I am concerned that at times my department, folks can use environmental regulations or use historical preservation in a way that supports what can sometimes just be NIMBYism.
Yeah.
So I just want to be on the record that as a woman of color who has lived in the city her whole life, my parents bought in when you could still get places for cheap in Roxbury. I could never afford the home that my parents have at this point. It is my intention as this process moves forward to ask tough questions and bring the conversation in to make sure that folks are fairly compensated.
Yes.
Well, I just want to say, let's see, yeah, hold on. Back in December, when this committee held a hearing about the state grant, Mr. Gregory testified, and your predecessor, Councilor O'Malley, pointedly asked Mr. Gregory, are you willing to sell this to the city? And his answer was yes. So our ears kind of perked up. I also want to state for the record that over 60 days ago, this development team, Lakeside Development Partners, LLC, put this on the market via an MLS listing for sale. They talked about having development permits all ready, et cetera, et cetera. So
Which people often do. They'll go through the community process, they'll buy the land, go to the community process, upsell, because there's already approved plans on it. We see it everywhere. They do it in East Boston.
Right. So the discussion here about having a residence here really does not comport with reality, in our opinion.
Beautiful.
So, and I do want to say, we can talk about this, but my understanding was that this was being developed not as a residence, but as a development, which is fine. We can have that conversation. The conversation today about the idea of an individual family living there is different than what I understood, both with looking at the MLS and what it says about what the property is being offered as. But I do think we can have the conversation about fair compensation is already part of the process. I will state it already. I wish there were a different approach, and we did attempt to try that. We were very clearly told that is not how the process works legally.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering those questions. Two things. There are legal parameters that we have to follow as the city.
Yes.
I will accept those legal parameters as limitations. I will not accept city policy as a limitation to make sure that this process moves through that. Because ultimately, you're the chief.
Yes.
If it's just, oh, we don't want to do that.
No. No, I'm saying we actually tried to come up, I sat down with Aldo and Kathy Baker and tried to say, could we do it this way? We had to check. But no, it's not a city policy. What we got walked through is this is how it works. And that we are not allowed to sort of make a new approach.
Well, off the record, I would love to recommend this for passage on the city council floor on Wednesday. I think for me, and obviously this can't happen publicly, but I need to know what the compensation is going to look like. Obviously, Mr. Brown and Mr. Gregory will be able to also bill for damages, and the city will also pay more than what you're offering. But I think if, as the chair, I am convinced that there's going to be proper compensation, and then on top of that, damages will be paid out to the owners of this land, then obviously that's up to them to accept it. They can still say no, and you can go through your process. But that is what I will, that's what I need, so we can submit it for the report for the Wednesday
Sounds
meeting.
good. We can do that.
Okay.
I just also want to be clear. Excuse me.
Testimonies done.
The order authorizes the taking. That's what City Council is being asked.
Yes.
The Park Commission is the one that will be determining the value, and that's their role. So, but we definitely want
please
to
have the Park
communicate
Commissioner
with
reach
you off the record.
Well, I sit on the commission, so I can tell you what I would be recommending.
Beautiful. So I could, Chief Whiteham, and then I can check in. I know that for legal reasons, you cannot actually meet with the folks, but I need that information.
So one other thing I think is worth noting is that from the beginning of when this process started to now, there has been a whole project around remembering the 54th, that one of its signature pieces was the renovation and rededicating of the 54th Memorial Monument. So I just want to note, it didn't just come from left field. There has been a process that's been growing over time. I wasn't in charge when this first started, but I think since we're here, I can say things publicly that I can't say in a private meeting that I'm not allowed to have, but I can make sure that people are aware.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your work. I appreciate Mr. Gregory and Mr. Brown and all of the other folks who came to testify both in favor and against this. I think that it's an amazing project, and again, my sensibilities are to make sure that if we're exercising our powers of eminent domain, that the people who are going to be impacted by it are going to be properly compensated. So if we can get that ironed out, then you have my support. Hearing is adjourned. Thank you.